The Flenory brothers are shown in Season 4 of BMF moving farther and farther away from the unified front they used to wear. As Terry and Meech anticipate growing their businesses in different ways, the repercussions of the trip to Mexico are still having an impact on their relationship. Despite his brother's misgivings about him, the latter continues his collaboration with J-Pusha. Conversely, Markisha is able to plant doubts in Terry's head when he becomes upset about his bigger brother's behavior. Meanwhile, back in Detroit, the Flenory family is still in disarray as little Nicole gets ready to go off to college, leaving Lucille and Charles to cope with their new empty nest. Beware of spoilers. In other areas of their business, the Flenory brothers remain narrow-minded despite their disagreements. As a result, both brothers recognize the same opportunity when they get to the set for a music video shoot where they are renting their cars. Meech and Terry come to the realization on the set that the artist still receives the short end of the stick even when they produce high-quality, lucrative art. On the other hand, the music's opulent rewards are enjoyed by her management and producer. Most musicians have learned to accept this as an unfortunate part of the deal, the artist says. However, the pair is aware that if they choose to launch their own record labels, they may change the situation. Another advantage of this prearranged visit arises when Meech meets Maria, a fascinating and attractive woman who may eventually play a larger part in his life. As a result, the two brothers leave that encounter with new objectives. They even think of Stamping Ground Records as a possible moniker for their record label. However, it's not always easy to be in agreement, particularly when it comes to BMF's business. The brothers have been forced to temporarily suspend their operations due to Bryant's return to their lives. However, J-Pusha completely disregards this directive and sells their whole stock. Terry and Meech, who continue to have opposing views on this issue, naturally experience some conflict as a result. Meech loses more money than he anticipated as a result of his earlier error with Nicole's graduation gift. Detective Bryant was able to locate the dealer, Alexandra, who is their secret car source after his sister was captured with the stolen vehicle, putting the Flenory brothers back on his radar. Meech was compelled to halt his regular activities because the BMF's operations depend heavily on these now suspected cars. Additionally, Alexandra and her colleague, Kenny, who bear direct responsibility for the significant error, turn into inherent liabilities. Bryant still has access to the CCTV footage of the car dealership, which shows the older Flenory brother on the scene, despite the fact that the owner had been able to cover for Meech on her records. In the end, Bryant uses the CCTV footage to connect with a distraught father whose kid was killed in the gang conflicts that Meech and his men were heavily involved in. The father, for his part, knows Meech from when he went to his son's funeral. Bryant's resolve in the case is strengthened even though this does not directly show his involvement in the murder. Any leads he might have hoped to get out of Alexandra, however, are in vain because she continues to be faithful to the Flenory brothers in the hopes of carrying on their joint venture as partners. As a result, Meech disagrees with Terry's reluctance to continue doing business with her. As a result, the two brothers' mutual worries are still impacted by their sharp differences. The relationship between Terry and Meech is significantly impacted by the trip to Mexico. It appears that their views on safety precautions, corporate concepts, and objectives have changed. They find it challenging to reach the same judgments on a range of topics for the same reason. J-Pusha and Alexandra are merely the most recent in a long history of disputes. But this time, Terry's attempts to establish professional contacts are negatively impacted by Meech's escapades. The younger brother recently gave Markisha considerable authority, and she assists him in obtaining distribution through Isaac. J-Pusha's decision to swiftly sort through their inventory has prevented them from shipping Isaac, despite the fact that this might be a huge opportunity. Terry therefore makes the decision to visit Isaac with Markisha. However, upon reaching the scene, the two discover that the latter has organized a sting operation to apprehend the Flenory brothers. Although they can easily get out of this predicament, it makes Terry feel distrustful. This pushes the younger brother over the edge, especially when combined with Meech's choice to enlist J-Pusha as his right-hand man for a crucial meeting. He consequently makes a decision that could later come back to haunt him. He makes the decision to reintegrate Brian into his inner circle. This could lead to serious issues between the brothers because of the latter's tense background with Meech.